Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can analyze the mental health and personality factors that may be at work in the life and death of Kurt Cobain. Cobain was the lead singer for the band Nirvana, who died in 1994 after battling with depression and substance use. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So I'll look here at the background of Kurt Cobain and then move to the mental health and personality factors. Kurt Cobain was born on February 20, 1967 in Aberdeen, Washington. Although his parents were not musicians, he had an aunt, uncle, and great-uncle that were. Cobain's interest in music started at age 2, and at age 4 he started singing and playing the piano. Cobain's parents divorced when he was 9 years old, which evidently affected him to a significant degree. He would later say that he was ashamed of his parents for not being a typical family. I find it interesting how he defined typical. Considering the divorce rate is around 50%, one could make an argument that having parents who are divorced is also typical. Cobain's parents both found new partners shortly after the divorce. Cobain lived with his father and stepmother initially. He started misbehaving in school and bullied other children, which led to his father taking him to a mental health professional. Eventually, his father was granted sole custody of him, and after further misconduct, his father had other family and friends care for Cobain. Cobain continued to get in trouble. He started using marijuana at age 13. Eventually, he would start using alcohol, LSD, and heroin. By 1990, he was dependent on heroin. Cobain went to live with his mother during his sophomore year of high school. He dropped out of high school 2 years later. His mother told him that he needed to leave or find a job. He decided to leave and was homeless for some time. Later, he would claim that he lived under a bridge for a while. Cobain was able to secure employment at a nearby resort, and this allowed him to afford an apartment in 1986. He would often watch television and sleep into the evening. Cobain and a friend of his from high school started a band called Nirvana in 1987. After several years of struggling, they would find success in 1991. Sometime around 1991, Cobain met Courtney Love. The two would marry in 1992. They had a daughter named Frances. Right before a musical performance in New York City in 1993, Cobain would overdose on heroin, only to have Courtney Love treat him with naloxone, which allowed him to go on with the performance. He would overdose again in March 1994, this time on alcohol and benzodiazepines. This time he was hospitalized. Later we see this would be considered an attempt to end his life. On March 18, 1994, Courtney Love contacted the police and told them that Cobain had locked himself in a room with a firearm. The police would confiscate several weapons from his home that day. Not long after this, Courtney Love brought together 10 of Cobain's acquaintances to stage an intervention. Initially, Cobain was not cooperative, but eventually he agreed to go to a treatment facility in Los Angeles, California. He checked into that facility on March 30. That same day, he asked one of his friends to buy him a Remington Model 11 20-gauge shotgun. Cobain claimed that he needed it for self-defense. At the treatment facility, he led the staff to believe that he was in no way thinking of harming himself. Later, he would climb over the fence of that facility, which was 6 feet high. He would take a taxi to the airport and fly back to Seattle. Over the next 2 days, he was spotted several times, although it's not clear what he was doing exactly. There was a report that Cobain took a cab to a gun store on April 2. He told the cab driver that he needed to buy bullets because his home had been burglarized, incorrectly using the term bullets when what he was referring to was shotgun shells. The last time Cobain was seen alive was on April 3. Courtney Love hired a private investigator to find him, but he was not successful. Sometime on or about April 5, Cobain, who was staying at his home on Lake Washington Boulevard, ends his own life using that 20-gauge shotgun that his friend had purchased for him. His body was found by an electrician on April 8. Cobain was 27 years old. He had heroin and benzodiazepines in his system. A note was found in a nearby flower pot. Now moving to the mental health and personality factors. Cobain had a number of conditions that put stress on him. It's believed that he had either major depressive disorder or bipolar disorder. But either way, we see a lot of depression, and that's a characteristic, of course, of both disorders. He also used an excessive quantity of substances for many years. I think this is an important point because a lot of the time with substance use, people look at that and think, okay, somebody's either using substances or they're not. But somebody can use a relatively small amount of substances. And of course that can cause problems, but it usually doesn't cause the same level of difficulties as does using a large quantity of substances. The quantity of substances he used was extreme. Part of this could have been because he was wealthy, he had access to whatever he wanted, so he could move to a point of excess very readily. Two of his uncles had ended their own lives, so we see a history here connected to this type of behavior. On the physical health side, he had bronchitis, and he claimed to have experienced significant pain due to a condition involving his stomach that was never identified. There's no way to know if he actually had anything wrong with his stomach. Many of those who use opioids specifically often claim that they have chronic pain. Sometimes there is an identifiable cause, and sometimes it may be something they say in order to explain their use, in order to justify it to other people. Now looking at his personality using the 5-factor model, I remember the 5 factors through the acronym OCEAN: openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So here we see a high degree of openness to experience. He appreciated art, he was intellectually curious, he was creative, kind of a classic conceptualization of high openness. He was low in conscientiousness, he committed crimes, used substances, was irresponsible, and impulsive. He had a low level of extroversion, he didn't have many positive emotions, he was not assertive, and not talkative. His level of agreeableness was probably mid-range. We see support for the idea that he was empathic, but also he was willing to be antagonistic. In terms of neuroticism, overall we see elevated neuroticism. He was depressed and had difficulty resisting temptation. I mentioned there was a note left at the scene. I'm going to look at some items from that note. This note was addressed to his childhood imaginary friend. I found this to be peculiar considering the tone of the rest of the note. I'm not sure why he did this. He said he hadn't been able to get excited about music for many years, so he may be referencing anhedonia here, the inability to experience pleasure, which of course is connected to depression. He said he felt exceedingly guilty. This is extremely common. With depression, often the guilt is inappropriate, so he felt guilty when he should not have. He said that he was one of those narcissists who would only appreciate things when they were gone. It's interesting he would reference a term like narcissism. This was probably just a way of putting himself down. He said he was too sensitive. This is a way of explaining the pain that's experienced. So if somebody feels a lot of pain, they may think that they have an extraordinary number of stressors, or they may think that they're too sensitive to stress. And it seems like he was going with the latter. He said he needed to be numb in order to regain the enthusiasm that he had when he was a child. So this may be referencing substance use and depression. He said he loved people too much. This is common in people who have high openness to experience. They feel emotions more intensely. So he cared about people a lot. He felt that caring very strongly, and he went on to say that in this note. It's not really clear why he mentioned this. Maybe it explains part of his pain. He loved so much that it led to pain. He said he had an appreciation for his fans and loved his wife and daughter. He said at age 7 he had become hateful towards humanity. That seems pretty unlikely for a 7-year-old, but this may be a way of making sense of those feelings of depression. So again, the feelings hurt a lot. They don't seem to make a lot of sense, so people look for a way to explain them. If he hated humanity, that would explain some of his feelings. At the end of the note, he tells Courtney Love to keep going for his daughter, saying that his daughter's life would be happier without him. So here we have a final rationalization. This is common for people who are extremely depressed. They start thinking that the world will be a better place without them. Therefore, the decision to leave this world seems logical and even altruistic. This note seems highly consistent with depression. He lost his will to live. He felt worthless. He had inappropriate guilt. He felt like a burden on society, like a fraud, like he was defrauding his fans because he really wasn't excited about what he was doing. And he also felt like he was ungrateful. So what lessons can we learn from the tragic case of Kurt Cobain? Well, depression and substance use led to his death. His actual death may have occurred in early April 1994, but he had been on this road for a long time. This was a protracted battle with a formidable foe. No amount of fame, money, no amount of support was enough to save him. It wasn't a good idea for one of his friends to purchase him a firearm, but other than that, his friends and family seemed to be quite supportive. They were worried about him. They tried to help him get into treatment. What's so frightening about depression is how it distorts the world. From an outside perspective, Kurt Cobain had everything to live for: a family, fame, wealth, a bright future, incredible success. But from his point of view, none of those existed because the depression distorted reality. It doesn't matter how good or bad reality is, depression can make everything seem hopeless. So it has a power to negate any positive. So if somebody makes $1,000 a year and another person makes $1 million a year, depression really sees those as the same. It can just level everything out. If somebody has limited social support or a lot of social support, again, depression can make those equal in the mind of somebody who suffers from it. It really is a merciless foe, and it takes a lot of energy to combat it. Mental health treatment, the support of people around the person, and I think sometimes really just stepping back from stressors. On top of the depression, of course, we see the substances. And it's not clear what started first. Was he depressed when he was younger, therefore he started using? Or did he start using and then experienced depression? But either way, no matter what started first, the depression and the substance use work together. The depression makes him feel bad. The substance use temporarily makes him feel good or back up to normal. But eventually the substances turn on the user. So he reached a point where no matter how much he used, he could not even get back to normal. Substance use just makes everything worse. But in the beginning, people are very attracted to it because it does offer some relief temporarily from that pain. It's really just a trap. People get caught in the substances, they need more and more for the same effect, and before they know it, they're suffering even more severe physical and mental health consequences. So it really is just like fuel on a fire. An unfortunate combination that ended Kurt Cobain's life. Those are my thoughts on the Kurt Cobain case. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.